Good afternoon. Let's do that one more time. That's not a very good start here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is an honor to be here, and it's great to see so many friends out here. And that's what's kind of been strange about this job, in that when I was in the airline business, they'd say, well, come talk for 15 or 20 minutes, and there may be time for questions. And I always had trouble filling up 15 minutes. In this job, it's been more of a challenge to pare it down to 15 minutes because there is so much to talk about. And people ask us all the time, why the chamber? Why would you want to do something like that? My wife asks me that all the time. And really, we think about that, and right before I took the job, actually 2 weeks before accepting the position with the chamber, Bridget and I were in Boulder, Colorado. Our son was looking at going to school up there, and it's pretty cool. We had a contest. For 4 days, we tried to find somebody who had something negative to say or had a bad attitude in Boulder, Colorado. We couldn't do it. In 4 days, we were unsuccessful, and it's just a great environment, so we decided we're going to move there. Said why? Our youngest son, obviously going to college. We love Memphis. The main thing I needed to do the work that I thought I was going to do was an airport, and it just made a lot of sense. Upon returning home and sobering up a little bit, we said, well, wait a minute. Why would we want to leave Memphis right now? Because after being here 17 years, so many things are going so well, and to leave right now would seem like a huge mistake. And so we committed to stay in Memphis for a while and try to be part of the great things that are happening here. And given that we're talking about sales here, the chamber really is a sales organization at the end of the day, and Sally can tell you she's out there doing it every single day. But when you think about selling Memphis, there's different audiences that we speak to, and one of them is selling Memphis to outsiders. Folks, that's easy. It really is easy. If we can get them here, it's easy to sell Memphis. And we have the chamber has so many resources to use because, for example, my wife was not a fan of moving to Memphis. She wanted to stay in Texas. In fact, we had a Suburban parked at the DFW airport for a full year after I moved here, and she spent a lot of time going back and forth. But once you get to know Memphis, and we see this over and over again, you bring people from out of town and they get it like that. They understand it, especially young people get it. Pat and I were talking about the Blues Ball coming up. That was one of the first events I got my wife here for, and she said, I've never been anything like this anywhere. And it's true. Only in Memphis, Tennessee could you experience something like that. And you see that happen over and over and over again. And guess what? The young people are getting it. Rhodes College, great example. Less than 10% of the graduates of Rhodes are from Tennessee. A lot of them are from Texas, California. I don't know why Texas and California, two pretty cool places. They decided to come to Memphis, great school, I understand that. But the last graduating class, 64% decide to stay in Memphis. They get it. Young people are getting it over and over again. And how many people here are familiar with Drew Holcomb? He's a local artist, really great. He and his wife, it's Drew Holcomb and family. And he really kind of summed it up. And he had to, let me back up a little bit. Great artist, career is growing. He had to move to Nashville to pursue his career. And he came back, he said, I figured this out. People go to Nashville to get something. People go to Memphis to give something. And you see that happening over and over again. So if we can just kind of leverage off the energy of our young folks, our future actually looks pretty good. And this is a relationship business. A great example, we had a large company here that was very, very close. It's a very large company. It's been here for a few years. I guess you could figure it out, but I probably shouldn't talk about it. But they decided not to come. There was an article in Forbes magazine that put Memphis on the most miserable city in the nation list. And their data was out of date, but the folks at the chamber, I had nothing to do with this, I wasn't even around, they went to New York, met with Forbes, but more importantly, took a group of Memphians to visit this company, along with, they knew that the president was a huge basketball fan. what do you do in Memphis when you need something? You go ask. It doesn't matter what it is, just go ask. That's the beautiful part, one of the many beautiful parts about living here. Whatever you need, you can just go get it. The Grizzlies said, sure, we'll help. So this CEO who loved basketball had Grizzlies, had the basketball signed by all the players, and got to talk about the Forbes article and why it was way out of date. And guess what? Memphis went from not even being on the list at all to a large company employing now about 550 people in good jobs, and it'll be growing to over 1,000 folks in the very near future. So that's just an example of how we have to overcome some of the stuff that's out there. Yeah, please give Memphis a hand. And one of the best things that's going on right now, as Christina knows, her job here is to keep me from saying something I shouldn't say, and if I do, to try to undo the damage, especially with a camera on, a bunch of people with cell phones in your hands. But the young people here, like I said, are getting it, and of the programs we have, you have the regular chamber membership, and by the way, we have, and if I've missed someone, we have Hilton and IAC here, who are both Board of Advisors for the Chamber, so thank you very much, and thank all of you who are Chamber members. I should start out with that. It means a lot having you here, so let me do that. But Sound Check is an offshoot, sort of the Chairman's Circle. The Chairman's Circle is a group of leaders who came together to try and make a difference in Memphis. And one of them came, sat down, and said, well, what can we do to get involved with the Chairman's Circle? And I said, I have no idea. Why don't you tell me? And so they got together, came up with a plan, and that group started out with a handful. They're now up to about 100 folks and growing daily. And it's just great to see them. You expect young people to be involved in quality of life and things like that, but these folks are really concerned about the issues facing our city, the business of Memphis, and again, I just can't thank the young folks enough for getting involved. Now, we also are selling Memphis to Memphians, and you may have heard about this effort that's going on that Mike Glenn and Rick Shadyac are leading. It's basically a rebranding of Memphis, and there's not much being said about it right now, but there's probably at least 150 people involved. There's an agency, there's a couple of agencies working on this, and the New York agency, the Memphis agency has, they get it, but the New York folks are here, and every time you see them, they have a big grin on their face, say, we've never been anywhere like this. We have never had an experience in all the years we've been in business, we've never experienced in Memphis, because there's all these contradictions. And Memphians are the ones that usually introduce those contradictions. And I said the other day, Memphians have taken complaining about Memphis to a whole new art form. And I've cleaned up my act. I don't say what I used to say, but it is complaining as opposed to the other word. And it's wild. You look at other cities have issues, they just don't do that. Had I said things about Memphis, or said things about Fort Worth when I lived there that are just as true, that people say about Memphis, I would have been knocked on my tail. I mean, you couldn't do that. And when I first moved to Memphis, again, we were just blown away. We planned on being here 3-4 years, by the way, 17 years ago. And we wanted to get back to Texas just as quickly as we could. Everyone knows everything's better in Texas. And by the way, why do people say that? Because they tell other people, they believe it. And I couldn't get it. All these people saying these terrible things about Memphis, and I wanted to live downtown, and we had a devil of a time finding an agent that would talk to us about anything downtown. Now, we had to live out east, and nothing against the suburbs. They have a lot of great things going forward, some of the best schools, things that we used to recruit people to come here, but I just couldn't get that. And so at that day and time, you could actually, you had ticket stock. Instead of printing off the internet, you actually had a physical ticket. And I could actually write a ticket on this ticket stock anywhere in the world. As long as you had this ticket stock, if I wanted to write you a ticket to Hong Kong today, I'd write it out, give it to you, and you're gone. Now, Northwest would get billed back $6,000, but oh well. So I started carrying 2 tickets in my jacket. I did it for over 6 months. And people start telling about this horrendous place called Memphis. I'd say, well, this is your lucky day. I've got free round-trip tickets to anywhere in the world you want to go. I get this look on their face. I actually did it a couple of times. And they say, really? I said, yeah, there's only one catch. It's one way. You know, if this is such a rotten place, go, leave, get out of here. And if you think about it, and this is where Christina gets nervous, so I'm going to clean it up a little bit. We have one major request. And we look at this, and I know there's some media in here, but we're all family, right? Everyone in here, if you didn't care about Memphis and you weren't excited about what you're doing, you wouldn't be sitting here right now. Guys, okay, I'll go ahead and do it. Shut up. No, quit bashing our city. Because Nashville doesn't do it on any given month, on any given year. Yeah. And by the way, I love Nashville, so don't take this the wrong way, but we get, especially Middle Tennessee, they love to use Memphis as an example of what you don't want to be. But on any given month, any given year, Davidson County has a higher violent crime rate than Shelby County. If you look at the University of Memphis, which by the way has the safest campus in the state of Tennessee, let's take a great school. Let's don't talk about University of Tennessee. Let's take Vanderbilt, a fantastic school that I love. The crime rate is 4 times higher on the Vanderbilt campus than is University of Memphis campus. And I could go on and on about the list, but what I want you to do, there's a sheet that each one of you had by your table. Israel, if you don't mind, hold it up. Take a look at this. I'm not going to go down the long list, but this is a very, very short list of things to like about Memphis. So if you would do one of 2 things. It's a very short list. I know each one of you will have something that should be on the list. There's a place at the bottom where you can write down the other thing you love about Memphis. And if you want to take it with you for some reason, one, we can get you more if you want them. Or if you want to do that, just let Christina or Sally know when you leave, say, hey, you need to put this on the list, because this is actually the first meeting we're using this. So the list is going to grow and grow and grow. But rather than have us sit around and talk about, okay, here's what we think is needed about Memphis, it's a lot easier to talk to you about that. So the whole marketing effort, a real focus of that is going to be marketing to Memphians. Now let me follow up on what I said about not bad-mouthing Memphis. We are family, so we do have to close the door, and we do have to recognize the real issues that we have, and we do have to address them, because we do have serious issues. No one in the room needs to be reminded that I bet a lot of you had to spend a lot of time this week talking about what happened in the Kroger parking lot. If that was the only thing that happened in Memphis, I guess we may not have such an issue. So I'm always very, very careful when I say that. As family, we can talk about it with each other. As family, we can decide what plans we're going to put together and have accountability around those plans. One of the moon missions is a long-range plan for Memphis. I thought Memphis had a long-range development plan, and they're just ignoring it. They don't. The last comprehensive plan was in 1921. Now, turns out that there's been lots of little plans. In fact, there are 3 pages, typewritten, of plans for the city of Memphis in various ways. And I won't say 100%, but over 90%, nothing's ever done with it. So accountability is a huge issue. We talk about selling the chamber's message. And I got a little bit of hot water with my daughter early on this thing, because I said that the key role of the chamber in the business community should be to break the cycle of poverty. And she pointed out that that was a pretty arrogant thing to say. You know, how can you say something that for 50 years, and this is an add-on on my part, and $22 trillion later, has not moved in 50 years? And how can you say that in a community like Memphis, where poverty is the number one thing holding us back? Because it all, education and jobs, it all rolls into one. And a reporter asked me, he said, why would the chamber, why would the business community be talking about poverty? You know, well, why? And I said, well, how's the government doing? No, it hasn't worked out very well. And this is nothing against government. You know, literally, thank God that there are people in our government that said we've got to address this and have made efforts to do that, because it hasn't all been a waste. Trust me, there's a lot of great examples on there. But as leaders in the community, we can't keep saying, okay, well, that's government's job. We've got to do this together. And that's the number one role. That everything that the chamber is doing, the moon missions now all rolls up into what does it take to break the cycle of poverty? Because if you think about it, if you look on that sheet of paper, when you start addressing what Memphis has going for it from a business perspective, if a company is looking at relocating manufacturing, logistics, back office, headquarters, it doesn't matter what it is, there's only maybe a couple of other cities in the entire nation that have the complete package here. No one has the geographic location. No one has the water supply. No one has the complete logistics infrastructure. So what's holding us back? Number one, and guess what? You talk to people outside of Memphis, they're not even mentioning crime anymore. Doesn't make the list. Workforce, number one. Number two is the physical condition of the city. Number three is the airport. That's the things we have to address, not necessarily the airport, but the airline service. We have a great airport. Is the airline service here. So I'll just give you one moon mission. It's one that a lot of folks are excited about because I go through all of them. We'll be here all afternoon. But it's called Harvard Tech. And you've probably heard about it. That's the one where we recognize that another great thing about Memphis, Memphis is leading the nation now in education improvement. Not Tennessee, Memphis. And based on where we are today in the life of this program, it's only going to continue to accelerate. So from a K through 12, you're going to continue to see dramatic improvement. Now that's just fine, but we have a pre-K issue that I won't talk about because that's a moon mission. But we sent a very loud message not too long ago, every child college bound every day. And that's just not true. All kids aren't going to college. In fact, a lot of our kids, unfortunately, almost 50% of our kids at any given time aren't finishing high school. So what I have to do is help them dream. That's the problem I had. I was from rural Oklahoma, and I just couldn't dream very big, and I had it pretty darn good. So you look at these young people starting the 7th and 8th grade, what this mission is, and Shelby County Schools are signed on to it, University of Memphis, all the trade schools, but let them start dreaming in the 7th and 8th grade. And by the time you're a 10th grader now, which is where we usually lose these people, when you're 10th grader, you say, okay, I have a choice now. If I hang out for 2 more years, I have a certificate, and I can start out in a job making at least $45,000 a year in only 2 years. If I want to spend 1 more year after that, that jumps up to $55,000. If I want to add a certificate after that, it jumps up to $85,000, $90,000. And this is high school diploma. And oh, by the way, you're also going to have about 15 to 18 college credits when you graduate. So if you want to go to college, you can do it in 3 years. If you want to finish your 2-year degree, we can do that. So it's basically taking our greatest asset, which are young people. Because guess what? Pittsburgh, leadership turned that city around. Pittsburgh's the place I didn't want to go after 1979, the first time I was there. Denver, turned around by leadership. Fort Worth, Texas, leadership. Oklahoma City, leadership. And that's what the business community is all about right now. But in Pittsburgh, they've got it going on, and guess what? Their number one problem in retention and recruiting companies? Workforce. Why is that? You know, Pittsburgh has it going on. They're fresh out of young people. No, they're old, they're white. They just don't procreate much anymore. And so they have a real problem. And think about it. Why did NAFTA work? NAFTA worked because half the population in the country of Mexico is under the age of 25. Guess what? Memphis has the greatest resource of any city in the United States, and it's our young people. If we'll take these young people and provide them the skills they need, we'll be a world beater. Because if you solve that, we solve poverty. You solve poverty, solve crime. Solve crime, solve social issues. So it really does all come back to that, and not to oversimplify it, but it comes down to that. So I'm going to wrap it up and try to get into some questions. I have a lot of things to talk about, but I haven't made it very far. We understand, and it really isn't arrogant about the issues that we have. The moon missions, of the 5 moon missions, at least 2 of them will probably roll off this year. And if you had told me a year ago that some of these new missions would be launched by now. I said that'd be nearly impossible. Get the question all the time, and why is the chamber involved in politics? You know, why do you have pictures outside your office window? And we have to. You know, our community was bankrupt. Now, we had $2 billion in liabilities just on that one, on benefits alone. And by the way, when it's all fixed, the employees will have a better package than what most people have in major companies here. Now, I was asked by the media, they said, well, what do you have to say to these pictures outside your office? I said, I understand. Because if I was in their shoes, and I said, I will take this job, and I will perform for you, I'll do anything you ask, in exchange, you promise to pay me this. That's what happened. Not in their minds, they were promised a certain level of compensation and benefits for doing a job. And is that promise being broken? Yes, absolutely. But if we didn't address it, we weren't going to have pension for the people who need it the most. We weren't going to be able to fix the roads. We weren't going to be able to hire more officers. And within 10 years, the benefits would have been the #1 item on the budget, more than roads, more than capital improvements, more than anything else. So we had to do it, and frankly, the business community had to get out in front. And we've told it's been quite a shock to our government leaders. They're saying, why are you guys here? I said, look, we're here from now on. We're going to, because we can't do it on our own. We can't do it without government. We can gripe about government all we want, but guess what? If we do it together, we can achieve some great things. Everyone in this room has to get involved. It's just pathetic, the voter turnout we have in Memphis, Tennessee. People talk about the issues that we have and then don't vote. But guys, that's where the power is. You know, how did Iraq, in the first democratic election, what was the statistic? It was like almost 90%, something like that, got out and voted, and you get blown up for doing that. And by the way, you have this big ID mark on your finger where everyone knows you voted, so you're a clear target. So if we're going to change things, we have to do that. We have to put really great leaders in there. And pick your favorite council person or commissioner to pick on. I've got mine. And that's the one that I took, by the way, to work with. There are things that individual cares about deeply that I care about deeply. There's always common ground. And so while there'll be differences, there's more that we agree on. And if we move forward together, we can get that done. So it's not going to be easy. And I go back to is Captain Eric Moody. A long time ago, he was with British Airways. And he's flying a 747, which I'm sure you all know is a large 4-engine passenger aircraft. And they flew through a cloud of volcanic ash. And they had a problem. And he came on the PA and he said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a small problem. We've ingested volcanic ash and we've lost all 4 engines. But we're doing our damnedest to get them going again. And that's kind of where we are. And by the way, they got them all going again, it's just fine. So we understand it's going to be a challenge, and we understand that success may not come overnight, but success is coming. And we talk about the negatives and the very disturbing things that happen when it comes to crime, especially with our children. And I wish I'd thought of this because it's one of the best things I've ever heard. Scott Morris, who I think most of you know at the Church Health Center. This is right after the Newtown shootings. And it was a very, not a real upbeat conversation. And he said, look, there is evil in the world, but will not triumph. So thank you very much.